The Vethkai vanguard moved toward Earth with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey. 200 warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single blast. Commander Zethanol led the advance force, eager to teach these humans their place in the universe. He expected fear. He expected panic. He expected the humans to crumble the moment the first shots were fired. He did not expect the moon to wake up. The lunar defense grid activated without warning. Hidden platforms rose from craters that had seemed empty for decades. Massive weapons emerged from beneath the gray dust, pointing at the approaching fleet with cold precision. The first volley came in the form of light. Brilliant, terrible light that burned through Vethkai shields like paper. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles exploded in seconds. Nuclear pumped X-ray lasers, the humans called them. They had invented these weapons to kill each other. Now they turned them against a common enemy. The second volley came as metal. Mass drivers hurled tungsten rods at incredible speeds. These simple weapons, just heavy metal moving very fast, punched through the most advanced armor the Dominion had ever created. 47 Vethkai ships died in 9 minutes. Zethanol could not believe what he was seeing. The Dominion had not lost 47 ships in a single battle in over 2,000 years. These primitive humans, with their tiny fleet and their single solar system, had done it in less time than it took to eat a meal. He ordered a retreat. His surviving ships fled back to the main fleet, carrying tailies of weapons that should not exist. On his flagship, High Commander Vex then received the report in shocked silence. His officers whispered among themselves. Fear, real fear, was beginning to spread. But Vexton was too proud to retreat. Too proud to admit that he had underestimated these creatures. He had 12,000 ships. The humans had maybe 300. Numbers would win this war, even if the cost was higher than expected. He committed the entire fleet. What Vexton did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for 80 years. It began with a discovery, the wreckage of an alien probe that crashed in the Pacific Ocean. Scientists studied it in secret, learning terrible truths. The galaxy was not empty. Hostile empires existed among the stars. And someday, one of them would come for Earth. The governments of the world, for once, agreed on something. They began Project Prometheus, a hidden program to prepare humanity for alien invasion. They built weapons in secret factories on the Moon, on Mars, in the asteroid belt. They developed technologies that made their public military look like toys. But the weapons were only part of the preparation. The real secret was the philosophy behind them. Humanity had invented something called mutually assured destruction during their Cold War. 2 nations, America and the Soviet Union, had built enough nuclear weapons to destroy all life on Earth several times over. Neither could attack the other because doing so would mean their own destruction. It was insane. It was terrifying. And it had kept the peace for decades. Now humanity applied this same philosophy to the stars. They could not defeat the Vethkai in a fair fight. They knew this. But they could make victory cost more than the enemy was willing to pay. They could make sure that even if humanity fell, the enemy would fall with them. They built relativistic kill vehicles, asteroids fitted with engines that could accelerate them to nearly the speed of light. A single one could destroy a planet. They built gray goo failsafes, machines that could consume entire worlds if activated. They created viral weapons designed to corrupt alien computer systems. And they developed the Orpheus Protocol, a dead man's switch that would turn every human ship into a suicide bomb. If the chain of command was broken, humanity did not fight to win. They fought to make winning impossible. The Battle of Mars lasted 6 days. It was the largest space battle in human history, and it was a massacre on both sides. Human ships fought with a fury that shocked their enemy. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not surrender when surrounded. Pilots flew their crippled vessels directly into Vethkai carriers, dying so that their enemy would die with them. One human captain, a woman named Sarah Chun, found her ship disabled and drifting toward a Vethkai hive carrier. Instead of ejecting, she activated her reactor's self-destruct sequence. Her final transmission was recorded and broadcast across the human fleet. "Tell my daughter I love her," she said calmly. "And tell these bastards that this is just the beginning." Her ship exploded against the hive carrier's hull. The ancient vessel, which had not been damaged in 6,000 years, broke apart in a bloom of fire and debris. When the battle ended, humanity had lost 70% of their military. Millions had died. Mars' colony was in ruins. It seemed like a defeat, but the Vethkai had lost 4,000 ships. A third of their invasion force gone. 3 hive carriers, vessels that were considered indestructible, were now scattered debris orbiting the red planet. Vexton stood on his bridge, staring at the casualty reports. He had conquered dozens of species. He had commanded fleets that darkened the skies of 100 worlds. He had never, in his long life, experienced anything like this. His advisors urged him to call for reinforcements. The nearest Dominion fleet was only 6 months away. Fresh ships, fresh soldiers, overwhelming force that would crush these humans forever. But Vexton refused. His pride would not allow it. He had told the Dominion Council that humanity would fall in weeks. Calling for help would mean admitting he was wrong. What Vexton did not understand was that pride was a human sin. Humans had written thousands of stories about pride, about leaders who refused to admit their mistakes and led their people to ruin. They knew pride better than any species in the galaxy. And they knew exactly how to use it against their enemies. Admiral Tanaka watched the Vethkai fleet from her command center beneath the lunar surface. She had lost so many people. Friends, colleagues, an entire generation of soldiers. The weight of those deaths pressed down on her like a physical force. But she also saw something in the enemy's movements. The Vethkai were not regrouping for another assault. They were hesitating. For the first time, they were uncertain. She opened a channel to all surviving human forces. "This is Admiral Tanaka," she said. "I know you're tired. I know you're grieving. I know some of you think we cannot win this war. You're right. We can't win it by fighting fair." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we're not going to fight fair. We never have. When our ancestors faced enemies with better weapons, they didn't give up. They invented new tactics. Guerrilla warfare, sabotage, psychological operations. They made their enemies fear the shadows." Her voice hardened. "The Vethkai think this is a war of ships and weapons. They're wrong. This is a war of will. And nobody, in the entire history of our species, has ever broken humanity's will. We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived wars that killed hundreds of millions. We will survive this." Across the solar system, human survivors listened. In shelters on Mars, in hidden bases in the asteroid belt, in the ruins of orbital stations, they heard their admiral's words. "Phase 1 is complete," Tanaka continued. "We've shown them we can hurt them. Now we begin Phase 2. We're going to show them that fighting us isn't worth the cost. We're going to make them bleed for every inch of space. We're going to make them fear us." She smiled grimly. "And then we're going to show them what humanity does to those who threaten our existence. We don't just defeat our enemies. We destroy them, completely, forever, so that no one ever makes the same mistake again." On the Vethkai flagship, Vexton felt that strange sensation again. That uncomfortable feeling he had experienced during Tanaka's first transmission. He finally recognized it. It was doubt. With their fleet shattered and their armies broken, humanity did what they had always done when facing a stronger enemy. They disappeared into the shadows. They became ghosts. They became nightmares. The Vethkai expected surrender. They had crushed humanity's military. They controlled the space above every human world. By every measure they understood, they had won. They were wrong. On captured ships throughout the Vethkai fleet, human prisoners began to move. For weeks, they've been quiet, obedient, broken. The Vethkai guards barely watched them anymore. These creatures had accepted their fate, or so it seemed. Then, on a single night, everything changed. In Cell Block 7 of the carrier Dominion's Pride, a human woman named Maria Santos stood up from her cot. She walked to the cell's energy barrier, smiled at the guard, and said something in a language he did not understand. "Do you know what I have inside my right arm?" she asked in perfect Vethkai. The guard blinked in surprise. Prisoners were not supposed to speak. Maria raised her arm. The skin along her forearm split open, revealing not blood and bone, but metal and circuits. A hidden compartment, surgically implanted years ago, released a ceramic blade into her waiting hand. "We've been waiting for this moment," she said. "All of us. For a very long time." Across the ship, in every cell block, similar scenes played out. Human prisoners produced weapons from impossible places. Blades hidden in bone replacements. Explosives disguised as tooth fillings. Communication devices woven into their nervous systems. The uprising lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Dominion's Pride belonged to humanity. This was not an isolated incident. On 17 ships across the Vethkai fleet, prisoners rose up simultaneously. They had been communicating through methods the Vethkai never suspected. Using quantum-entangled implants that appeared as harmless, medical devices on every scan. But the uprisings were only the beginning. Throughout the occupation zone, Vethkai commanders began to die. Not in battle, but in their sleep, at their meals, during routine inspections. The killers were never seen. They left no evidence. They simply struck and vanished like smoke. These were the shadows, humanity's most secret weapon. Men and women who had been surgically altered to appear as Vethkai servants. They had infiltrated the Dominion's ranks months ago, posing as slaves taken from other conquered species. They waited, watched, learned, and now they struck. 14 senior commanders died in a single night. The next morning, the Vethkai woke to find messages written in their own blood on the walls of their quarters. "We are everywhere," the messages read. "We are no one. We are everyone. You cannot find us. You cannot stop us. You can only fear us." High Commander Vex then ordered increased security. He ordered sweeps of all personnel. He ordered executions of suspected infiltrators. None of it helped. The killings continued. Then the computer systems began to fail. It started small. Navigation errors. Communication glitches. Minor malfunctions that the Vethkai engineers dismissed as battle damage. But the problems grew worse. Ships lost contact with each other. Weapons systems fired at random. Life support failed in sealed compartments. Human programmers had uploaded viruses during what the Vethkai thought were surrender negotiations. These digital weapons had been sleeping in the Dominion systems for weeks, slowly spreading, learning, adapting. Now they woke up, and they were hungry. Perhaps the most devastating attack was not physical at all. Humanity began to broadcast its history directly into Vethkai communications. Not propaganda, not threats, just history. True stories of human wars. The Vethkai learned about Stalingrad, where humans fought house to house, room to room, dying by the millions, but never surrendering. They learned about the resistance movements of Earth's great wars, where ordinary people, farmers and teachers and children, fought against occupying armies with whatever weapons they could find. They learned about Vietnam, where a small nation defeated the most powerful military on Earth through patience, endurance, and an absolute refusal to give up. They learned about Afghanistan, the graveyard of empires, where invasion after invasion failed against people who treated war as a way of life. The message was clear and terrifying. Humans had been doing this to each other for thousands of years. Guerrilla warfare, insurgency, resistance. These were not new tactics. They were ancient traditions, perfected over countless generations. The Vethkai were amateurs facing masters. Commander Zethaval did not understand this. He had led ground forces for the Dominion for 300 years. He had pacified dozens of worlds. When he landed 200,000 troops on Mars colony to crush the human survivors, he expected quick victory. He found something very different. The colonists were gone. The city stood empty. The settlements were abandoned. Zethaval's forces spread across the Martian surface, searching for an enemy that seemed to have vanished. Then they found the message. It was carved into the red stone of a canyon wall. Letters 10 meters tall, impossible to miss. Welcome to our home. We've been waiting. The first soldiers disappeared that night. A patrol of 12 entered a tunnel and never came out. When a search team went looking for them, they found only blood and a single note. One down. 199,988 to go. The colonists had not fled. They had retreated into a network of tunnels that stretched hundreds of kilometers beneath the Martian surface. They had been building these tunnels for decades, preparing for exactly this moment. The guerrilla war began. Zethaval's soldiers never saw their enemy. They died to traps hidden in the red dust. They died to bombs that exploded beneath their feet. They died to snipers who fired from hidden positions and disappeared before anyone could react. They died in the darkness of the tunnels, killed by people who knew every twist and turn of their underground world. The humans fought like demons. Old men and young children carried weapons. Women who had been farmers became deadly soldiers. Everyone fought. Everyone killed. There was no surrender, no negotiation, no mercy. 3 months into the campaign, Zethaval had lost 140,000 soldiers. He had gained almost nothing. The humans held their tunnels. They struck without warning and vanished without trace. Every time he thought he had cornered them, they slipped away, leaving only bodies and mockery behind. The soldiers who survived began to change. They stopped sleeping. They saw enemies in every shadow. They fired at sounds that weren't there. Some went mad, unable to handle the constant terror of fighting an enemy they could never find, never understand, never defeat. Zethaval found himself reading human history, trying to understand these creatures. He learned about their concept of total war, where entire populations became weapons. He learned about their resistance fighters, their partisans, their guerrillas. He learned about their saying, "Every blade of grass will be a weapon." On Mars, every grain of red dust had become a weapon. Finally, after 3 months of failure and death, Zethaval sent a message to High Commander Vexthen. It was short and desperate. "We should reconsider this campaign. These creatures are not like any we have faced. They do not fight like soldiers. They fight like something else. Something I do not have words for. They are willing to die, all of them, as long as they take us with them. I do not know how to defeat an enemy that has already accepted death." He paused before adding the final line. "I am beginning to think that no one does." Vex then read the message in silence. Around him, his fleet was falling apart. Ships were failing. Commanders were dying. Morale was collapsing. And the humans, the primitive, emotional, violent humans, were still fighting. He had thought conquering Earth would take weeks. It had been 6 months. And he was losing. For the first time, Vex then considered something he had never considered before in his long life: defeat. High Commander Vex then stood alone in his private chambers, staring at reports that made no sense. 6 months of war. 4,000 ships lost. 200,000 soldiers dead on Mars alone. Computer systems corrupted beyond repair. Commanders assassinated in their beds. And the humans were still fighting. His advisors whispered behind his back. His officers questioned his decisions. The Dominion Council had begun sending messages, demanding explanations for the disaster that should have been a simple conquest. Vexthan's pride burned like acid in his chest. He had conquered worlds. He had crushed civilizations. He would not be defeated by these primitive creatures. If the humans would not surrender, they would burn. He gave the order to change everything. Destroy Earth, he commanded. Complete sterilization. Leave nothing alive. If we cannot have this species, no one will. 2,000 Vethkai ships moved into position above humanity's homeworld. Their weapons charged, pointing down at the blue marble that had given birth to the most stubborn species in the galaxy. The bombardment began at dawn. Earth time. Kinetic strikes hit first. Massive projectiles that punched through the atmosphere and turned cities into craters. Then came the energy weapons, beams of light that boiled oceans and melted mountains. Finally, biological agents, designed to kill anything the weapons missed. Billions died in the first hour. In bunkers deep beneath the surface. Humans huddled together, listening to the world end above them. Some prayed. Some wept. Some simply held their families and waited for death. Admiral Tanaka watched from her command center, her face a mask of stone. She had known this might happen. They all had. But knowing and seeing were different things. Earth, the homeworld, the cradle of humanity, was dying. Her communications officer called out. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from the civilian shelters. Millions of people are begging us to negotiate. Tanaka did not move. Has the enemy offered terms? No, Admiral. They're not accepting communications. They're not stopping. Then there's nothing to negotiate. She turned to another screen, one showing data that only a handful of people in the universe knew about. Numbers were changing. Positions were shifting. Something was happening very far away. Tanaka allowed herself a small, cold smile. We knew they might do this, she said quietly. We prepared for it. We prepared for everything. On the other side of the galaxy, the Vethkai homeworld fell silent. It happened suddenly. One moment, Vethkai Prime was buzzing with normal activity, a world of 30 billion souls going about their daily lives. The next moment, all communication stopped. Ships approaching the planet found only silence where there should have been voices. Then the images came through. Cities were burning. The great towers of the Dominion capital were falling. And moving through the destruction were machines, millions of them, eating and building and multiplying faster than anything should be able to multiply. The machines were human-made. When the Vethkai ultimatum arrived 6 months ago, humanity had made a decision. While they prepared their defenses, while they built their weapons, they also launched 200 ships in the opposite direction. These ships carried no soldiers, no weapons, no crews. They carried seeds. The machines were called Reapers, and they were humanity's most terrible creation. Self-replicating weapons, designed to consume any matter and turn it into more of themselves. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be stopped. They had no off switch, no recall code, no mercy. Humanity had sent them to every Vethkai world they could reach. One by one, Dominion planets went dark. Colony worlds, industrial centers, military bases. 17 systems fell in 8 hours, consumed by the great tide of human vengeance. Vexthan received the news while Earth burned beneath him. His first reaction was disbelief, then denial, then, finally, horror. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species would create such weapons. No species would use them." His aide, trembling with fear, handed him another report. "They did more than use them, High Commander. According to our intelligence, they built these machines years ago. They were waiting for us. They knew we would come. They knew we would try to destroy them. And they made sure that if they fell, we would fall with them." Vexton felt his legs weaken. He understood now what he was facing. These humans were not like other species. They were not sane. They had looked at mutual destruction and seen not horror but strategy. They had built weapons of absolute annihilation and kept them ready, waiting for the moment they would need them. They had accepted the death of their own world as long as their enemies died with them. He opened a channel to Earth. His voice shook as he spoke. "Humans, this is High Commander Vexton. Recall your weapons. Recall them now. We will negotiate. We will retreat. We will leave your space forever. Just stop the machines." For a long moment, there was only static. Then a face appeared on his screen. Admiral Tanaka looked tired. Behind her, Vexton could see concrete walls cracked from bombardment, emergency lights flickering, dust falling from the ceiling. She was broadcasting from a bunker beneath the ruins of Tokyo, the city that had birthed her grandmother's stories of survival and fire. "High Commander," she said. Her voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "You burned our world. You killed our children. And now you beg. I will give you anything," Vexton said. "Name your terms." "Any terms. Just stop the machines." Tanaka shook her head slowly. "There is no recall code. There never was. We built them to be unstoppable because we knew you would try this. We knew that someday someone would try to destroy us completely. So we made sure that complete destruction would be mutual." "You cannot mean this," Vexton said. "You would destroy your own species to destroy ours?" "We are already destroyed," Tanaka replied. 3 billion dead in the past hour. Our homeworld is ashes. Our civilization is ruins. What else can you threaten us with?" She leaned forward, and Vexton saw something in her eyes that made his blood freeze. Not hatred, not anger. Something worse. Acceptance. "You wanted our surrender," she said. "This is our answer. We will meet you in hell." The transmission ended. Vexton stood frozen on his bridge. Around him, his officers were receiving reports from across the Dominion. World after world, falling to the gray tide. Billions dying. An empire that had stood for millions of years, crumbling in days. One of his advisors approached. "High Commander, we should retreat. Save what we can. Regroup and consider our options." "There are no options," Vexton said quietly. "Don't you understand? There never were. We thought we were the predators. We thought they were prey. But we were wrong." He looked down at the burning earth, at the world that had produced these impossible creatures. They were never prey. They were something else entirely. Something the galaxy has never seen before. He thought of all the species the Dominion had conquered. The peaceful ones who surrendered. The brave ones who fought and lost. The clever ones who tried to bargain. None of them had ever done this. None of them had ever looked at extinction and said, "If we must die, so must you." Only humans thought the bombardment continued. Earth died slowly, its surface turning to glass and ash. But the victory was hollow. Every hour brought news of more Dominion worlds consumed by human vengeance. Vexton had wanted to teach humanity a lesson. He had learned one instead. Some species should not be threatened. Some species cannot be conquered. Some species, when pushed to the edge of extinction, will burn the entire galaxy down rather than surrender. Humanity was such a species. And now, far too late, the Vethkai understood why. 1 year after the war began, silence fell across the galaxy. Earth was a tomb. 3 billion humans had died on their homeworld, their bodies buried beneath ash and glass. The blue oceans had boiled. The green forests had burned. The great cities, monuments to thousands of years of human civilization, were nothing but shadows scorched into stone. But humanity was not dead. On Mars, the colonists emerged from their tunnels. On the moons of Jupiter, settlements that had hidden in the ice began to stir. On distant colony worlds, humans who had watched their homeworld burn started to rebuild. 4 billion humans remained. Scattered, wounded, grieving, but alive. They had survived. Admiral Yuki Tanaka did not live to see the end of the war. Her bunker collapsed during the final bombardment, and she died with her staff around her, still giving orders, still fighting. But her final message had been recorded and broadcast across human space. "Do not mourn," she had said. "Do not waste time on grief. Rebuild, remember, and never, ever let them forget what happens when you threaten humanity." The humans remembered. Across the galaxy, the Vethkai Dominion was collapsing. The Reaper machines had consumed 60% of their territory before they finally stopped. Their programming limits reached. But the damage was done. 30,000 years of empire, shattered in months. The surviving Vethkai worlds were isolated, cut off from each other by dead systems and corrupted infrastructure. Without their central government, without their fleets, they began to fight among themselves. Old rivalries emerged. Subject species, seeing weakness, rose up against their masters. The empire that had threatened humanity was tearing itself apart. And they, Galaxy watched. They had all known about the Vethkai. Every spacefaring species lived in fear of the Dominion, that vast and ancient empire that could crush any resistance. Some paid tribute. Some hid. Some simply prayed they would never be noticed. Now the Dominion was broken, and everyone knew who had broken them. The humans. The young species. The primitives who had barely reached the stars. They had done in 1 year what the rest of the galaxy could not do in 30,000. 1 year after the war ended, emissaries arrived at Proxima Station, humanity's largest surviving colony. Ships from 12 different civilizations, carrying diplomats and scientists and military observers, all wanting the same thing. They wanted to meet the humans. Dr. Elena Vasquez was chosen to greet them. She was 43 years old, a xenobiologist who had studied alien life before the war. She had lost her husband and 2 children in the bombardment of Earth. The grief was still fresh, still raw, but she carried it quietly. Like all humans now carried their grief. The emissaries gathered in Proxima Station's largest meeting hall. Tall beings and short beings, creatures of scales and creatures of crystal, entities that floated on electromagnetic fields and beings that existed as collective minds. They were different in every way, except one. They were all afraid. Elena could see it in their body language, hear it in their voices, sense it in the careful way they spoke. They had come to make alliances, to offer trade, to promise protection. But underneath all the diplomacy, they were terrified of what humanity might do next. The Reaper machines were still out there, silent but waiting. Human technology, human weapons, human ruthlessness had been proven beyond any doubt. And the species that had seemed so primitive, so divided, so easily conquered, had shown the galaxy what they truly were. An ambassador from the Keleth Unity spoke first. "We offer our friendship to humanity. We wish to establish trade relations and mutual defense agreements. Our resources are yours." Another ambassador from the Synthesis Collective quickly added, "We have medical technology that could help restore your wounded worlds. We give it freely as a gesture of goodwill." Others spoke, each offering something, each desperate to be on the right side of humanity's favor. Elena listened patiently. When they finished, she stood. "We thank you for your offers," she said. Her voice was calm, without threat, without anger. "And we want you to know something about humanity." The room went silent. We did not want this war. We did not seek the destruction we caused. When the Vethkai came, we tried to negotiate. We tried to find a peaceful solution. They refused. They wanted our submission or our extinction. They gave us no other choice. She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity values peace. We always have. But we learned long ago that peace cannot exist without strength. The lions of our world learned to fear us. The wolves learned to avoid us. Every predator on Earth learned that humans were not prey. We made them learn. Our eyes moved across the assembled aliens. We did not want to teach this lesson to the galaxy. But the Vethkai insisted. And now everyone knows. Humanity will not be conquered. Humanity will not be enslaved. Humanity will not be exterminated. She smiled, and for a moment, despite everything, there was warmth in it. But we also want you to know this. Be our friends, and we will die for you. We will share our knowledge, our resources, our strength. We will stand beside you against any threat. We will be the most loyal allies you have ever known. The smile faded. Be our enemies, and, well, you have seen what happens. The emissaries exchanged glances. The Kelith ambassador spoke again, his voice careful. We understand. We have studied your history since the war. Your capacity for violence is remarkable. But so is your capacity for creation, for cooperation, for compassion. You are a species of contradictions. Yes, Elena agreed. We are. We can be monsters. We can be angels. We can build wonders, and we can burn worlds. We contain both within us, always. That is what makes us human. She spread her hands. So here is humanity's offer to the galaxy. Work with us and see our best. Stand against us and see our worst. The choice is yours. The Galactic Cooperative was formed that year. 12 species at first, then 20, then 50. Humanity became a founding member, not through conquest, but through the simple fact that no one dared refuse them. But the humans surprised the galaxy. They did not become tyrants. They did not build their own empire on the ashes of the Dominion. Instead, they became builders, teachers, healers. Human doctors developed cures for diseases that had plagued alien worlds for millennia. Human engineers designed technologies that improved life across dozens of systems. Human diplomats, with their strange talent for understanding conflict, helped resolve disputes that had simmered for centuries. The species that had terrified the galaxy became, somehow, its greatest hope. 50 years after the war, a memorial was built on Earth. The planet was healing, slowly. Terraforming drones had worked for decades, cleaning the atmosphere, restoring the oceans, planting new forests. It would take centuries for Earth to fully recover, but the process had begun. The memorial stood where Tokyo had once been. It was simple, a black stone pillar reaching toward the sky, surrounded by gardens where children now played. No names were carved into its surface. There were too many names. Instead, it bore a single inscription. The words that Admiral Tanaka had broadcast as the first Vethkai ships burned in the light of human weapons. We did not start this. But by everything we are and everything we will become, we ended it. Visitors came from across the galaxy to see the memorial. They stood in silence, reading those words, thinking about what humanity had done. In the archives of every species, in every war college, in every strategic analysis, there was now a file marked with the highest warning classification. It contained a simple note: passed down through generations of military leaders and diplomatic advisors. Never corner the humans, because humanity had proven something that the galaxy would never forget. They were not the strongest species. They were not the most advanced. They were not the oldest or the wisest. But when pushed to the edge of extinction, when left with no choice but surrender or death, they chose neither. They chose to fight. They chose to burn everything, including themselves, rather than kneel. And in that choice, they became something that the galaxy had never seen before. A species that could not be conquered. A species that could not be broken. A species that would survive, no matter the cost. Humanity. In the garden beside the memorial, a young girl picked a flower. It was blue, the color of Earth's old oceans, the color of the sky that had once stretched above human heads. Her grandmother sat nearby, watching. She was old now, one of the last survivors of the war. She had been a child when the HFY came, had lived through the burning, had helped rebuild from the ashes. "Grandmother," the girl asked, "why did they attack us?" "The HFY?" The old woman smiled sadly. "Because they did not understand us, little one. They saw our divisions and thought us weak. They saw our conflicts and thought us primitive. They did not see what lay beneath. What was beneath?" The grandmother looked up at the memorial, at the words carved in stone, at the sky that humans had nearly lost forever. "Everything we are," she said softly. "Everything we have ever been. The fire and the darkness and the light. The ability to destroy and the determination to survive. They saw humans fight each other and thought we were broken. They did not realize that every war made us stronger. Every struggle taught us something new. Every near extinction proved that we could endure anything." She took her granddaughter's hand. "We are not the strongest species in the galaxy, but we are the hardest to kill. And now everyone knows it." The little girl looked at the memorial, at the gardens, at the people walking peacefully through a world that had once been ashes. "Will they ever try again?" she asked. "Will someone else come to hurt us?" Her grandmother shook her head. "Perhaps, someday. But when they do, they will remember what happened to the HFY. They will remember what humanity did. And they will think very, very carefully before they threaten our children." She smiled, and there was steel beneath the gentleness. "Because we remember too. We always remember. And we will never let anyone forget." Above them, the stars waited. The galaxy turned. And humanity, scarred but unbroken, looked up at the universe with eyes that held both wonder and warning. They had survived the worst the galaxy could throw at them. They were ready for whatever came next.